What if I told you there was a day in history when people didn't drown in water, but in beer? Sounds like a frat party gone wrong, right? But no, this really happened. And it's one of the strangest disasters London has ever seen. Picture it. Rivers of beer rushing down narrow streets. Houses collapsing, people swept away. It sounds like something out of Monty Python. But in 1814, it was no joke. It was terrifyingly real. And what makes it even stranger, this happened not in some remote corner, but in the heart of London, the world's largest city at the time, a place of crowded streets, poverty, and endless thirst for ale. Today, we dive into the bizarre, tragic story of a London beer flood, when a brewery became a tidal wave of destruction. London, early 1800s. Imagine the smoky streets filled with horse carts, chimneys belching coal, and taverns on nearly every corner. Beer wasn't just a drink, it was a way of life. Safer than water, more filling than bread. Even kids drank it daily. Picture a father pouring ale into a wooden cup and handing it to his child, because water might make them sick. In this world stood the Horseshoe Brewery in St. Giles. A true giant. Its wooden vats were engineering marvels of their time. So tall they rivaled houses, so wide that workers could walk inside during repairs. One vat in particular loomed like a monster, nearly 22 feet high, holding more than 1 million pints of dark porter beer. That's over 1,500 modern bathtubs, or in gamer terms, more energy drinks than you'd need to survive every boss fight in Dark Souls combined. But there was a hidden danger. These vats were held together only by huge iron hoops. Imagine a barrel the size of a house, straining against its own weight. If even one hoop snapped, all that liquid fury would come crashing down. October 17th, 1814. It was late afternoon at the brewery when workers noticed something wrong. One of the iron hoops had slipped loose from the monster vat. Normally, they would hammer it back. This time they ignored it. Perhaps they thought, it's happened before. Nothing to worry about. But just hours later, at 5:30 p.m., disaster struck. With a sound like thunder, the vat burst open. Imagine a dam shattering. Only instead of water, a tidal wave of thick, dark porter beer exploded out. The force was violent. It set off a chain reaction, collapsing another vat nearby. Suddenly, more than 1.5 million liters of beer were unleashed. To give you perspective, that's enough to fill 2 Olympic swimming pools. But instead of cheering crowds, there were screams of panic. Can you imagine it? Millions of pints spilling like a tidal wave. If that blew your mind, hit like and tell us in the comments, what's the wildest beer fact you know? The brewery walls cracked. Bricks flew. A deafening roar echoed through the district. Then came the wave. A 15-foot-high wall of beer surging into the narrow streets of St. Giles. Imagine stepping outside your door, expecting the cool evening air, and instead seeing a roaring tsunami of beer bearing down on you. The smell of malt and yeast choking the air, the ground trembling as wooden homes collapsed like toys. There was no escape. The St. Giles district was one of the poorest in London. Families lived crammed into tiny, fragile homes, often just 1 or 2 rooms each. Many were already struggling to survive. When the beer wave hit, they never stood a chance. 8 people died that night. Some drowned. Others were crushed by collapsing walls. The youngest was a 3-year-old girl named Hannah, who had been quietly having tea with her mother. In seconds, she was gone. Another victim, a servant, drowned in the very cellar she was working in, a place that should have been safe. Imagine being trapped inside your own home, hearing the roar outside, then watching your walls collapse inward as sticky, heavy beer surged in. No clean water, no air, just panic and darkness. But not every response was horror. In the chaos, some locals grabbed pots, pans, even boots, scooping up what they could. Think about it. In the middle of tragedy, someone was probably shouting,
Quick, lads, free drinks.
It's a darkly human moment, joy and desperation colliding in the middle of disaster. When the floodwaters finally drained, the devastation was clear. Streets reeked of beer. Homes were wrecked. Families mourned. And the smell? It lingered for months, soaking into the very walls of the neighborhood. Naturally, people wanted justice. Someone had to pay. The case went to court. But the brewery's lawyers argued it was an act of God. In other words, don't blame human error, blame fate. And shockingly, the jury agreed. No one was fined. No one went to jail. The brewery walked away free. Imagine that happening today. A factory explodes, kills people, destroys homes, and the company shrugs, oops, God did it. In modern courts, that excuse would collapse instantly. But in 1814, it worked. The Horseshoe Brewery nearly went bankrupt covering damages, but it survived. And soon enough, it was back to business, pouring and selling beer as though nothing had ever happened. Historians still debate, was it truly bad luck or negligence? The vat was old. The hoops were worn. To many, this wasn't fate. It was inevitable. But in the years that followed, the beer flood became folklore. Londoners retold it for generations. Some stories grew absurd. Pubs flinging open doors, inviting people to scoop free beer from the flood itself. And London wasn't alone. In 1919, Boston faced its own bizarre tragedy. The Great Molasses Flood, when a storage tank burst and unleashed a wave of syrup that swallowed part of the city. Just like London, the streets stayed sticky for months. It reminds us that history isn't always grand battles or kings. Sometimes it's ordinary people caught in extraordinary, even absurd disasters. So what can we learn from the London beer flood? Maybe it's this. Even the things we love most, like a good pint, can become deadly in excess. If this happened today, TikTok would explode. POV, surfing a beer wave through London. Or memes reading, free beer, but at what cost? But in 1814, there were no viral clips. Just grieving families, ruined homes, and a city left wondering how a drink of celebration had turned into a flood of sorrow. The London beer flood remains one of history's strangest disasters, proof that the past isn't always dry. Sometimes it's very, very wet. From towering vats to a flood larger than Olympic pools, history isn't just names and dates. It's unforgettable stories. The Great London Beer Flood, a tragedy drowned in ale, yet remembered in history. What do you think? Was it an avoidable disaster or fate waiting to happen? Share your thoughts below, for we can make history meets today.